Good morning. Welcome to the final day and the penultimate session of ICISA Surety Week 2023. We've had a fantastic feedback from all of our members and from everyone who's attended our sessions across the week. We've really appreciated the level of engagement that we've seen in all of our sessions, and we hope that that can continue for this final day. We've got two sessions today, starting with one extremely important discussion looking at sustainability in surety. Obviously, this is a topic that has a lot of prominence in the media, a lot of prominence on regulators' agendas, and also in our own work on a daily basis. So we're pleased to be able to bring a conversation to you on this topic. Because we are an international organization and we want to ensure that we can have voices from across the world involved in our conversations, we have recorded this conversation to ensure that people in different time zones could take part. One thing to note as we go through the recording is, unfortunately, one of our participants had some bandwidth issues as we were recording, and so the sound is a little bit of an issue at one or two points. We've all been there, and I'm sure you all have seen those types of things before in your own life. So I ask you for a little bit of patience as we go through the recording on that. But in general, I think that there won't be a major issue, and you should find some good information within this discussion. I'm also hoping to be joined by Sean McGroarty from Allianz Trade at the end of this session, to talk a little bit more about this topic and answer some questions. The questions tab is in the bottom right of your screens, which you can access throughout the conversation. So if anything comes up that you wish to learn more about, put those into the questions tab, and Sean and I will try to address those at the end. But without further ado, I'll hand over to the conversation and hope you enjoy. Sustainability has been a growing priority for ICISA for some time now, although what started as something of a buzzword is quickly becoming a more concrete issue and challenge for the industry to address. This pressure has come from multiple directions: internal desire to respond to the world around us and to be part of making the world a cleaner environment, but also from external factors like regulation, investors, board decisions, and other areas. Also part of that is the demand side of things from clients for products or for means that address sustainability in their businesses. We have also surveyed members of ICISA on a number of occasions to ask them about their approaches to sustainability, and we have seen a steady increase in focus on this subject. We are also seeing a growing focus from regulators on this topic specifically. Initially, this is focused on disclosures, transparency, and reporting around carbon emissions related to your business. And while that element continues to intensify, and in the US, we're seeing the National Association of Insurance Commissioners adopting standards on this issue, we're also seeing a turn of focus from regulators to the prudential treatment of sustainability. In Europe, IOPA, which looks after the insurance sector across the board, has recently launched a discussion paper that looks at the prudential treatment of sustainability, both on the asset and the liability side. So this is clearly something where there's a lot of pressure in the industry to see some progress on. And we at ICISA want to be part of that discussion. We've also been working to consider the best approach that we can take as an industry on this subject. At the moment, we are very much in the learning mode, both from our members, but also from external organizations. This includes people like the Partnership for Carbon Accounting Financials. That's a UN-recognized organization that works with the Net Zero Insurance Alliance, an alliance of some of the largest insurers out there, that sets standards for assessing the carbon emissions related to financing businesses, and that includes insurance. But also, we're seeing pressure from banks, clients, and contractors as well. These last groups in particular are critical because ultimately we need to be able to provide as a sector the type of services that meet their needs, both in terms of risk protection, but also increasingly around sustainability needs. I'm very pleased that I have a distinguished panel of industry participants with me today. Maybe, Barbara, if I can ask you to start off to introduce yourself.
Okay, hello, my name is Barbara Seidlova. I'm in charge of investor relations of CEZ Group, which is basically one of the largest electric utilities in Central Europe.
And Sean?
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name's Sean McGroarty. I'm the Global Head of Surety for Allianz Trade. We're one of the leading writers of surety in Europe and a global player, and it's a pleasure to be here on the panel today.
And Roland, from you.
And hi, my name is Roland Richter. I am a regional executive for Europe and Canada and head of surety for those regions.
Thanks all. Really pleased that you could all make it for this session. I'd like to start off, if we can, in a sort of definition phase and understand what sustainability means from you, both, I guess, personally, but also in a business sense. Barbara, would you mind starting us off? What does sustainability mean for you and for CEZ?
Yes, sustainability is basically is having a growing importance, driven by the fact that we are a utility company, which has basically a large part of the business in electricity generation, which obviously emit carbon emissions. And therefore, we are seeing a growing pressure to make our business model more sustainable, meaning basically reduce our emission intensity and carbon footprint. And therefore, basically for us, the key focus on sustainability is adjust the company structure and the strategy towards more sustainable business model, i.e. one way is how we can produce electricity with less emissions and be part of the decarbonization and transition of the whole energy sector as such.
Excellent. Sean, what from Allianz's perspective, what do you think is the core part of sustainability, and what can we do as a sector?
Well, I think firstly, Daniel, I mean, Allianz as a group, being a major, insurance, also insurance asset manager and global company, is really focused on sustainability. It's really a key part of our group's value proposition and also our strategy. And this also cascades down to Allianz Trade. And I think when you look at our business within Allianz Trade, I really and you look at the ESG, which we generally focus on the environmental piece, which of course is critically important, but we shouldn't discount the social responsibility or the governance piece either. But I really break it down into two areas. One around our employees, in terms of our employees doing the right thing, taking the right actions, either from a corporate perspective or a personal perspective, and supporting them with sustainability. And then secondly, supporting our clients that are either really investing in sustainability or let's say supporting them with their transition towards sustainability. And equally also clients that aren't focused on sustainability, really trying to have a dialogue and engage with them as well, I think is important for us to encourage them to do the right thing and really focus on sustainability as well. So I say, so those are really the key focus areas from our end.
And Roland, how about you? What's the view of sustainability from Liberty?
Well, Liberty Mutual, also as a large global company, is very, very committed to sustainability. Our core focus as a mutual company has been on environmental, social governance type issues. So for us, it is something that is, front and center in everything we do across all the products. I think the challenge that we have within the surety industry is how we define it and where we go from there going forward. And to a lot of us, it's a sexy new term. Everyone wants to do environmental. What does it mean? How do we apply it? Where do we go with it? And when you apply it to surety, there's a lot of other layers that need to be looked at and examined in terms of, what is it? So for instance, when you're doing any type of sustainability, is it the construction? Is it the owner of the product? Is it the actual product being put out? So if I talk about a windmill is for much, it has to be constructed. Is it the special purpose vehicle company that owns the windmill farm? Are they trying to connect to the grid? So there's so much aspects to this that I think as, we look at this subject both here and globally, we have to get much better in the definitions on how we apply it ourselves to this part of it.
Yeah, and I guess some of that comes down to where the pressure comes from to become more sustainable. Where do you feel that's really, where's that pressure coming from right now for you?
Oh, the pressure is coming internally. I mean, as an individual, that has children, for the next generation, for just someone that likes to do outdoor sports and watches what's happening to our environment, it's absolutely important that we do it as a company level. We're absolutely committed to doing it. And I think as an industry, the insurance industry in particular is going to be massively impacted by global catastrophic events on the weather side. So there's an interest for us as an industry to do it. So as good social citizens or just citizens of the world, there's a strong pressure at every level.
Sean, do you see that same pressure from where you work?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, like I said before, it's a big focus for us as a company, and really, it's all about doing the right thing as individuals, and also securing the world a better place for our children, our families, and also for our clients. And this is something we're very much focused on. I mean, you're also seeing a lot of investment in the environmental space. Countries like the U.S. and Germany in particular have big investment infrastructure programs. So there's big opportunities and really for our clients, and it's really it's up for us to try to develop solutions in ways to support them. As Roland mentioned, it's not easy on the underwriting front. There's a lot of different reasons why, which we can get into, but the better we can define and create solutions for our clients to support them with their sustainability efforts, the better for all of us.
Yeah.
Barbara, I know you mentioned that you are on a kind of a journey as an energy producer to becoming more sustainable as well. Can you talk a little bit more about what that looks like from an energy perspective?
Yes, we basically are an electricity producer. Majority of our basically assets and profits come from electricity generation, where a relatively large part of this business is based on the coal generation, which has been under immense pressure from the regulatory perspective and also profitability perspective recently, with which started with the introduction of emission trading scheme, which is valid in the European Union. So the high cost of carbon made the coal generation much less profitable than before. So we are driven to a kind of to decarbonization by from two sides. One is the basically growing. So we are basically feeling pressure from the regulatory perspective, and but also from how the profitability of the less sustainable part of the businesses has been deteriorating, and that's one part. The second one, we are seeing huge opportunities, business opportunity for growing into this basically clean energy generation. Being it construction of renewables, solar, wind, which we have been trying to develop for quite some time. And the second, we are seeing also a demand for more sustainable energy solution in our customer base. So another part of the business we are developing is something which we call energy services, and basically our vision to help our customers to decarbonize. So we are offering them energy efficiency solutions. We can help them with the overall energy management. We can install the rooftop solar for them, renovate all their heating and cooling systems, and things like that.
Okay, and Barbara, does that play into the type of financial services that you need? So, and particularly when we're talking about surety, does that play into the products that you're looking for?
Not directly. We are rather basically facing, rather than looking for a specific products or green products in a surety sector, it's rather trying to basically be a that is acceptable for financial institutions as such.
Right.
Because, as I was mentioned, we have relatively high share of coal generation, which we have been, which has been a problem for growing number of insurance companies, banks, equity bond investors, and we need to basically prove to them.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think Barbara raises a good point. The goal of her industry is to reduce the carbon footprint. And I think that's the goal for everybody. And as we look at reducing that carbon footprint, what comes under it? What products can we provide that helps with that? Now, a surety bond guarantees specific performance of a contract or some obligation. So in some respects, where we become a partner with the customers is how do we help them in whatever endeavor that they need to reduce carbon footprint? How can we guarantee the performance of that construction, that work, that obligation to do it? And that comes in a lot of different ways. It can be decommissioning oil wells. It could be reclamation of land from mining on coal. It could also be hooking to the power grid. So it could be the building of clean energy sources such as hydro or wind farms. So there's so many elements of it where the surety industry can get involved. And this becomes, a little bit of a challenge as we work through it. How do we define it? I think as Sean mentioned earlier, do we have green products? Yes, I think all the companies are trying to put out green products, but how we define those green products is a little bit more of a challenge for the surety industry because of the fact that we are only providing those guarantees to the customers that ultimately are reducing the carbon.
Right. Sean, I guess you'd have the same perspective. Any different opinions there?
No, I fully agree with Roland's comments, and I think even in the case of Ches and Barbara, they're a very important client of ours in the Czech Republic, and we've been supporting traditional bonds for them. And this has really been our focus in many cases for companies really focused on sustainability, or even those companies in the energy sector that are making the transition to let's say the green space, is we've been focused on generally providing more traditional type bond products within our approved bond product matrices. So that's been a key focus of ours to begin with. We are, of course, supporting other bonds that could be considered more closely linked to green bonds, like decommissioning and others that Roland described. Also for companies that are in an earlier phase of their, let's say, life cycle. But in those cases, it's much more difficult because you have companies that they don't have the track records, they don't have the balance sheets, or their credit metrics don't necessarily add up from what we'd like to see. And then, of course, in many cases, you're looking at longer tenor bonds. So you put that combination together, and it is very challenging for us as an industry and Allianz Trade as a company to be able to support those companies. So I think there are some innovative ways that we should be thinking about to support them. And there's a lot of things that we can be doing, but I think there's a real opportunity here. And as I mentioned before, with the big infrastructure investment in the green energy space, there's a big opportunity. So it's up for us as an industry to really create those solutions and support those clients to the best of our ability.
And I guess then to you, Roland, as well. Do you think it's important that as a sector we are, in a sense, crafting a message that's directed towards sustainability specifically, or that we do our job and the type of products that we provide on a general basis, and within that have a philosophy that is geared towards sustainability? Is that the right way around?
I think so, but I would also echo Sean's point. I think Sean makes a good point that there are still perhaps products that we can create or create better communication on how we, from an underwriting perspective, can interact with some of these type products in industries at a better rate. So, if I'm working with a customer, so the surety product is based on indemnification. Our customer, in the event that they have a problem, will indemnify the surety for any bonds that we pay out on a default or on a claim basis. The indemnification is strong. So Barbara's company is a strong company. It has a lot of assets. It would be very easy for them to be indemnify any surety providing them a bond. But if they are the beneficiary on the other side, then our focus switches to who is the principal, who is actually performing the work, and do they have the strength to do it? So when you look at some of the indemnitors, again, if someone's building a wind farm, many of these bigger corporations are setting up special purpose vehicle companies to do these type of projects. These SPVs are often just nominally capitalized. They have great cash flow perhaps, but they have a lot of outflow until the product is, or the wind farm or that hydro plant is finally finished and starting to generate revenue for it. So they're not necessarily a strong indemnitor for us as sureties as an industry. So right. I think, we always have to look at the direction in which the bond is flowing, the type of obligation and the strength of the indemnitor to really understand what we can do and how we can do it.
Yeah. Sean, do you have any further thoughts on that?
No, I guess my other thought is if you look at our banking competitors, and in many cases we're collaborating and partnering with banks, it seems that they've done a better job of defining KPIs or integrating KPIs within their underwriting process to be able to support some of these clients. And they also clearly see the link between sustainability and long-term financial performance. So they seem to be a bit ahead of the curve. And I think if we can learn from them and follow suit and maybe follow along the same pathway in terms of integrating sustainability linked KPIs into our underwriting process or our contracts to support our clients, where we could also in some cases provide improved terms and conditions, or on the contrary, if they don't meet certain thresholds, we could actually provide worsening conditions to really promote them to really reach their sustainability targets. So there are some things that we can learn from our competitors in the banking market as well, and things for us to think about as we go forward.
Yeah, and I guess we're seeing some of that from the regulators, as I mentioned before, that when we've hosted previously the chair of IOPA, Petra Hilkema, during Trade Credit Insurance Week, and another colleague of hers during Surety Week last year, they talked about the role and the importance that insurers can play in driving change within clients as well. So whether that's having something within a contract that requires action from the insured, or other things like that. Do you think that there's a role for the surety in changing the behavior of policyholders in that respect, Roland?
In what sense? Because changing the policyholders, the beneficiaries of the bonds view on it?
I guess the sense that as an insurer you have a role in altering the behavior of a policyholder. I know the relationship within a surety is different to insurance in general, but this is something that we're hearing from some of the regulators.
Yeah, so if by policyholder you mean the beneficiary, the person that will benefit from the bond if the bond is defaulted. Yeah. I think as a regular part, the entire surety industry does a good job of trying to educate beneficiaries on what the product is, how it's delivered, and what are the grounds for being a default. If it is the principal, the group that's performing the project or the construction, then that group also, we do a good job because those are our customers and we interact with them on a regular basis and trying to educate them on what we can and can't do. There are certain aspects of it, duration. When we underwrite any customer, we have a good idea where they're going to be in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. You get out to 10, 20, 25 years, for, taking down the windmills after they've lived their useful life. It's much harder to predict that. So then we have to work with the beneficiary on how do we structure, hey, can we write a series of 5-year bonds instead of one 25-year bond? And that requires a bit of interaction with the customers. And then there's also the type of obligations that perhaps the beneficiary is looking to have covered. Is it an efficiency or efficacy guarantee? Are they asking us to guarantee an output from that entity? There it becomes a little bit more complex. We can't guarantee that the wind is going to blow every day at the same rate every hour of the day. So we're limited to producing things that our customer can control, and that we as a surety, if we have to either pay out on it, have some reasonable understanding that that efficient or efficacy guarantee can be met or not met. All right, in terms of the underwriting process.
Sean, what's your approach to this topic?
I think part of it comes down to really engagement with clients or prospects in terms of trying to understand their business and trying to create solutions for them, right? So, as Roland said, we could be trying to break down these longer tenor bonds that are 20, 30, 40-year bonds into smaller chunks or periods, as an example. So there's a lot of different things I think we can look at to help support these companies, and also work with, I guess, beneficiaries to help them also better understand the different pain points from our perspective and our client's perspective, and how we can actually work together to develop solutions that meet all parties' needs.
Mm-hmm. Barbara, I think you can hear me again. I was wondering, you mentioned at the start that when it comes to things like financing, you see a lot more pressure from banks for them looking to see that you're doing the right thing. Can you talk a little bit more about what it is that you see in that area?
Yes, sure. Basically, in general, banks want to see our progress towards sustainability, and a lot of the European banks actually have some specific policies whether they can engage in clients which are active in either coal generation or coal mining. So some have a strict criteria who can they do business with. And for some, our coal exposure has become a problem, and therefore, basically, they cannot do business with us at all. Others are happy to see our for some banks, it is sufficient that company like us can demonstrate a path towards a cleaner future or greener future. They want to see clear targets, clear decarbonization targets, clear deadlines by which we want to decommission all the coal, and see clear targets how we will develop the renewables portfolio and to make our portfolio more cleaner. They want to see clear targets when we become climate neutral. And we are seeing this pressure both from the banks, but also from bondholders, equity holders, and also insurance companies. So we are seeing this pressure for us to be on the decarbonization path from all these angles.
And so, Sean, if you were looking at a new client as well, what types of things would you look to see from them to know that they're on such a path?
I mean, we look at several different, let's say, sustainability targets within some of the policies that we're establishing at group level. But I think clearly meeting those decarbonization targets are really a key part of it. So it's that's I guess the focus from our end.
Yeah, Roland, you mentioned some of that as well, but are there kind of, it's also been talked about in the past about exclusions in the sector, and I know particularly at the reinsurance level, there's some discussion of exclusions of certain aspects of the energy production sector. Is that a core part of how you look at this issue?
Well, reinsurance is not really a concern for us. When we look at it what is from our own internal environmental, social governance perspective, what adds or takes away from the world in terms of sustainability. So there are certain industries that we are trying to de-emphasize and back away from, but we also want to do it in a responsible way. There are industries that also may have needs. So a coal mine, if we agree to do a reclamation for a coal mine that's at the end of its life, that doesn't add any carbon to the world, it actually cleans up something. But if you're doing it at the beginning of a coal mine, then you're adding perhaps a lot of carbon to the world over the life of it. So you have to look at it in different stages of where it is and the perspective of what it is. Decommissioning an oil well is different from writing a bond guaranteeing construction of a new oil well platform. So again, where it is. So we've been taking a more thoughtful approach to how we approach this within the guidelines, the corporate guidelines of trying to do the responsible thing and ultimately contribute to the reduction of carbon everywhere.
I guess then what it looks like is that it's a step-by-step process, and it's you can't take the same approach to every risk. You kind of have to see it in context with that. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's no magical solution. This is very much breaking it down to different levels and seeing what it is that we are obligating. We're putting the guarantee for what type of obligation, and what is it that we're trying to achieve with that.
Sean, obviously Allianz is also another huge group overall. Do you see any changes in as a part of an insurance group where that impacts the surety business itself?
Well, clearly, in certain segments, Roland mentioned coal, and as one where it's it's more difficult for us to support clients in that sector. Although we can receive exemptions for more green or environmentally friendly type products like decommissioning bonds that are actually, of course, enhancing and returning the grounds, the earth back to their normal state. So so we do have some let's say restrictions in place, but I think what we're really focused on is really let's say taking ESG from a disabler in certain cases where with certain industries that are making that transformation to really being an enabler for our business. So this is something we're really focused on supporting and really supporting some long-term clients through that transition, because we've had clients for 20, 30 plus years, and so we're really focused on making that happen. It's not easy, but that's a big focus of ours, a big focus of my team as well, to make sure we can support them. I think back to Roland's point, it's really case by case. There's no magic formula. So it's really about engaging with our clients, with our teams internally to find solutions and find ways to support these clients. But it comes down to case by case. It's a lot of time and effort, but it's clearly worth it to try to find the right outcome.
Yeah. And I guess you both mentioned early on that sustainability isn't just the E part of ESG that we all look at as well. What kind of things are you working on that look at the S&G part, the governance and the social part? For example, we're also seeing a lot of effort from regulators around human rights, making sure that you're seeing through products, that you're seeing through projects, and seeing the human rights impact or the social impact. How do you see that playing out in the long run, Roland?
Well, that's an important part of it. Within Liberty operates in about 30 countries, 19 of which we offer the surety product. As we work through those countries, you want to make sure that there is sufficient, making sure that we're not doing anything that really helps any negative group do things that violate human rights, what have you. I mean, so for an example, there have been pipelines that I've been rebuilding pipelines in Canada that we've been offered to bond, but then the indigenous groups that on whose land these pipelines cross are not supportive of it. So we recognize that their human rights as indigenous groups that had perhaps been impacted by history where these pipelines were built in the past when governments were not as sensitive to the issues, are being impacted, so we will not support those type of pipelines. If the indigenous group says, look, we're going to be a co-owner in the pipeline, we're fine with it crossing it, then we can work with them. So it is a part of the underwriting process. It's a part of being a good social citizen and supporting everything. I think we do benefit because most suretyship exists in the more democratic, socially liberal or socially conscious countries in the world, in the Western world and what have you, where there's good rule of law, there's less corruption and things like that. So that makes it a little bit easier for us as an industry to work with.
And I guess the same is true for you, Sean, but also I guess like anything else in insurance, that it comes down to having good information and good data. Is that core to your understanding of sustainability as well?
I absolutely. And I think when it comes to human rights and things like this, we have very good data quality internally, not only within Allianz Traded, but within the Allianz Group. We have pretty strict policies around, know your customer, know your beneficiary. So we have a lot of checks we go through to make sure that we're only supporting customers that are truly focused on sustainability and doing the right thing, and it prevents us from interacting or dealing with clients that aren't. So it's which is really key for us as a company and also as individuals.
And Barbara, if you can hear me, one thing that I wonder about, and it leads to from what we just talked about, is around the disclosure requirements, that these are becoming a lot more strict and a lot more expansive. How do you feel about some of the disclosure requirements that are coming out, particularly in the EU? Are these a challenge for you, and do you think that they're beneficial so that financial services companies can understand your position?
I think they are beneficial from a perspective that at the moment, because we hope that they will contribute to the setting up the standards, because at the moment what we are facing is various different set of standards requiring us to disclose different things. So some kind of a unification of what is expected would certainly help make our life easier, because what is challenging in the ESG area is the unification, so to say. So some investors are following, or for some stakeholders, it is more important to follow GRI standards. Some are using SASB standards. So we actually welcome this effort from the European Union to try to basically learn from the standards they are in place already, and try to create a framework that hopefully will be the one that will be accepted for majority of the players. That we hope it will help us navigate the whole space. And
and Sean, when you look for this information, what are the best sources of it? Is it going directly to the businesses involved, or are there public sources that are quite helpful?
We primarily rely on information from clients. We also have internal sources, data points that we've proprietary that we've created as well. So we're relying less on external data sources.
Right. As we're getting towards the end of the conversation, I was wondering if we can look a little bit about the future, where you think this topic is going. Roland, what would be your prediction, even looking at the sector? What types of challenges do you think are ahead, and what type of opportunities do you think lie within the sustainability space?
Well, the surety industry has always been poised and has been a major contributor to building infrastructure around the world. So as long as infrastructure work is going on, the surety industry is going to be part of it, providing the guarantees for the construction, connecting the power plants to the grid. Each country has its own interpretation of how they want to use the surety product, and for what duration, what terms and conditions on it. That's something that we as an industry have to become more active on and shaping, creating the win-win situation that the beneficiaries get what they need from the protections from the surety bonds, as well as protecting the interests of our clients, such that they are not put at an unfair advantage through the surety bond by providing a guarantee that puts them at risk in terms of their performance of whatever obligation they have to fulfill.
Yeah. And Sean, from your position, what do you think that we need to do as a sector to become more sustainable overall?
Well, I think it's it's really about finding solutions and finding ways to support our clients through the transition, right? So this is really the key. I think there's a lot of conversation underway at the moment in terms of how we can do it differently, whether it's engaging with the beneficiaries to develop solutions that are shorter term of a nature, that are more acceptable to us and let's say the marketplace. It's also an opportunity for us to look at creating, let's say, new products as well as an opportunity. Like I said before, it's not something we've been focused on in the short term. It's more about providing traditional type bonds and products for our customers at the moment that are on their sustainability journey. But I think developing new products as well is something we should be looking at. And we can also look at the banks and work with banks as well, because they've been quite innovative and on the forefront of creating, like I said, more KPI linked targets and contracts with our joint clients to either provide better terms and conditions, or worse, if clients aren't meeting those KPI or sustainability KPI targets. So So I think there's a lot more we can do. As Roland said, there's a huge opportunity developing, and it will only continue to grow given the importance of ESG and sustainability. So it's up for us as an industry to really develop solutions and create opportunities for those clients.
Barbara, if you can hear me, we're just wrapping up, and I was wondering if you had any final thoughts. Where do you think the energy sector will be in 5 years when it comes to sustainability?
I think very much farther than it is at the moment. We have seen acceleration of the focus on sustainability over the last couple of years. And certainly in Europe, it has grown. This change has even accelerated with the breakout of war in Ukraine, because it has, especially in the energy sector, it's become quite obvious that the goal of sustainability is contributing to the goal of basically security of supply. Europe can become basically independent on if Europe becomes not reliant on fossil fuels, it will be more independent. And therefore, we are seeing everywhere within our company and in other countries as well, growing focus on building out these renewables and decarbonize as fast as possible. And ČEZ is ready for it. Our strategy is aligned with these goals, and we are moving fast ahead to contribute to the decarbonization of the energy sector.
Excellent. I think that's a really good point to conclude on, because as you said, we're in Europe, we're dealing with an energy crisis. It's driven by external factors beyond our control in some respects, but also there are things that we can control, and that is becoming more sustainable when it comes to energy production and energy usage as well. And I think there is a role for our sector in supporting that transition for sure. All that's left then is for me to thank Roland, Barbara, and Sean for your contributions. Thank you very much. My apologies for the sort of the brief sound problems that we had during the session, but I think we still managed to have quite a good discussion, and hopefully there are some questions from the audience when we go back live. So thank you all very much. Thanks to all of the panelists for that conversation. I think even though we had some of those issues that I mentioned earlier, I feel that there was some really interesting points that came out about progress that's been made, that there are still projects out there that may be in sectors that are considered dirtier than others, but that there's still a role for the sector to support a transition to cleaner energy production. And also that there's a commitment at a personal level from many people within the industry to address these topics. I'm hoping that Sean, there's Sean just now. Thanks Sean for joining us again. We've had a couple of questions coming in. If you have some time to take one or two of those as well. One is about, in a sense, the credit ratings and assessing the credit of a beneficiary. We know that sustainability doesn't necessarily lead to something being a better credit risk, but do you take into account the sustainability of someone when you're considering whether to support them? Or in other words, would you be more likely to support someone if they had high sustainability, but maybe their credit rating wasn't quite as high as you may have liked?
Good morning, Daniel. Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Daniel, just to be clear on the question, I thought I was more focused towards the beneficiaries of our bonds versus our underlying clients. Is that
yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
What we're looking at from a beneficiary perspective?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the beneficiaries, clearly as part of the underwriting process that we go through, we're obviously not only underwriting our clients, but we're also looking at the beneficiaries and of course their track records in general in terms of how they interact and manage and work with clients, and also looking at the sustainability piece as well. It hasn't been as big of a focused on looking at the sustainability part of the underwriting process with beneficiaries. But I think as we evolve and develop, this is clearly an area that we'll be more focused on. And we do have, I should say, checks that we go through, standard checks with beneficiaries to make sure that not only sanction checks, but other checks to make sure they're acting in a sustainable way, and there's nothing, they're not violating any laws or anything else that would prevent us from moving forward, or prevent us clearly from wanting to support those clients in any fashion.
Right. Another question that's come in is, from business and premium perspective, can surety business reduce its dependency on fossil fuel gas related projects? And if so, what do you think a timeline for that is? Is this always going to be a core part of our sector, or do you think there's a natural change involved?
Well, I think, oil and gas has been an important part of our sector for many years. We have many clients in that sector, but I do think those companies are evolving. I think right now the industry is becoming more selective, and we're becoming more selective in terms of supporting companies, let's say in the oil and gas space. But we are committed to supporting those that have made firm commitments to meet certain targets, and also long-term ambitions with respect to, let's say, net zero carbon by 2050. And we have very clear guidelines in place within Allianz Trade and the Allianz Group, where these clients have to make these commitments in order for us to support them on a go-forward basis. We can, of course, get carve-outs on an individual project basis for what we call green or renewable energy or more environmentally friendly projects. So we can do that, but we are being more selective in that space. But I think given the importance of, let's say, ESG and the transition, I think we're seeing a lot of our clients in the oil and gas space really focused on this. So it's which is encouraging to see. They still need to do more, but it's making it easier for us to support them because that many of them are complying with, let's say, the conditions and the targets that we've put in place.
Right. And obviously Ches is an important client of yours based in the Czech Republic, but one of the aspects of the surety sector is that markets can be quite different from country to country. When you think about sustainability, are there big differences between individual countries or not so much?
We really haven't seen a huge difference from country to country. It's really, client by client, right. And also, as I mentioned before, also checking the beneficiaries as well, but not a huge difference from country to country.
Okay. Another question we have is that we know that banks are feeling pressure to reduce the proportions of their portfolios that are related to oil and gas as well. But equally, they're also seeing, particularly right now, a good return on investment in that area. When we look at that from the surety perspective, what do you think that means for you and also the relationship with banks in general on this topic?
Yeah, I mean, at least from an Allianz Trade perspective, Daniel, we have a large portfolio of banks around the world that we work with. And it's been a key part of our, let's say, business development over the last 5 to 10 years. And we've been seeing more and more opportunities, let's say, in the green energy space, whether it's wind, solar, hydrogen, you name it. We're seeing more opportunities, and these are areas that we're focused on supporting for the right clients with the right credit metrics. So this seems to be a big opportunity. And of course, with the investment, the infrastructure investment that's taking place in that sector, clearly that will lead to more opportunities for us in the overall marketplace. So I see obviously challenges, but I also see big opportunities for us in the banks and the industry overall.
Right. We still have time for a couple of questions if people want to get them in. We don't have too many left on our slate in the questions tab, but there's still a little bit of time. I guess then, Sean, if there are any final thoughts that you have that you'd like to share with the audience, or any challenges that you would give to the rest of the industry, not just the insurers, but the broking community and anyone else out there about sustainability, what do you think we should be focusing on as a sector?
Well, I think that, first of all, it's a huge challenge, but once again, a huge opportunity. And we all really need to make the commitment to work with our clients and also with beneficiaries to develop solutions and create solutions for our clients, because this is going to be more and more important as we go forward. And there's even things that we can do from, let's say, a day-to-day perspective with our clients, because we should be engaged with them in supporting them with their journey. And there's also equally clients that aren't focused on sustainability, where I think we really need to have a very active dialogue with them. I think that's part of our responsibility as individuals and companies to do so. And that's what we're engaged with. And I mean, we even have a few basic examples in terms of just engagement with clients, in terms of just, let's say, reinforcing the importance of sustainability. We've had clients in certain countries where we've met with them on site, and we've even had like joint events, planting trees together as an example, to emphasize the importance of of doing the right thing for the earth and so on, and also creating stronger relationships. So those are some simple things that we're doing, but I think as part of our duty as good citizens, these are things we should be doing with our clients to promote sustainability and work with them to develop solutions.
Right. A couple of questions just come in. Do you use certain ESG ratings which are provided by classic credit ratings agencies, or in general, do you have a view on some of the ratings that are available for sustainability?
We're starting to look at them right now. So we haven't adopted any to date, but we are looking at them. Also, some of our large global broker partners have developed ESG ratings for their clients. We've been getting some demos and looking at them. I know some of our competitors are as well. So I think these are tools that clearly we can be using. And of course, the more data that we can use to support our underwriting decisions, the better, right? So this is really key. The banks, like I mentioned before, seem to be doing a little better job on that end. And they've been able to find a link between sustainability targets and actions and longer term financial performance. So I'm convinced all these actions that we're taking and looking to develop or working with partners to find the right tools to support us will really make a big difference going forward.
Yeah, for sure. There's one other question which I think we probably covered quite a bit in the session itself, but maybe you have some final thoughts on it about marketing towards the green label, whether that's an important thing in itself, or if there's another way of doing it. And also related to that is the point of how do you keep monitoring that a client, that a beneficiary maintains greenness over time as well?
Yeah, and from a product perspective, I think obviously we have a long way to go. I mean, no one in the industry has defined a product as green per se, but I think there are opportunities for innovation. I know it's something that within Allianz Trade, we're fully committed to, let's say, ESG innovation, and I think if we can develop opportunities that will clearly differentiate ourselves from the marketplace, part of it comes down to, like I mentioned, collecting the right data sources and being able to rely on the right level of data. Let's say KPIs or information to be able to assess performance and so on, and integrate this within our underwriting process. So there are opportunities in this space to develop, let's say, greener products. I don't think it's going to be easy, but I think those of us in the industry who actually take the forefront and lead in this will be in a much stronger position to win new opportunities and really show their commitment to the cause per se.
Yeah. There's also a question that perhaps I can address as well, as around do we see tightened legal and regulatory requirements in the near future? We're definitely seeing a lot more regulatory focus on these topics. As I mentioned at the start of the recording, there are a ton of new disclosure and transparency requirements out there for companies in the real economy side of things, but also in financial services that are targeted specifically at insurers and banks and everything else, where they have to be a lot clearer about their exposure to certain types of risks. That's going to be a bigger and more intense focus from regulators in the coming years. Those things are really bedding in now. So there'll be a lot more public available information about insurers and others about what type of risks they're underwriting. And obviously one of the aspects of sustainability is the reputational risk element to it as well as the personal pressure to do right for the world as well. We're also seeing regulators looking at the prudential treatment of sustainability as well. What that looks like in the end, that's still up in the air, but we're definitely seeing it both on the banking side and on the insurance side, and also across the balance sheet, so both asset and liability side, where you'll have to invest. There'll be encouragement to invest in greener, longer-term greener assets, but also making sure that your underwriting is sustainable as well, because there may be some capital charges that are attributed to non-sustainable risks in that extent. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Sean, as well.
No, I mean, we're seeing the same thing, Daniel, and I think this is really going to force companies that aren't committed to looking at ESG as a core part of their value proposition or their underwriting process. It's going to force them to really focus on this, right? Otherwise, there could be some huge implications, either from a reputation, market perspective, or capital perspective. So I think this will only increase as we go forward. So this pressure is not going away, and I think the regulatory environment will continue to increase and create more transparency, and those that aren't, let's say, following path will be very visible to the rest of the marketplace and will be lagging behind or have market or reputational, let's say, implications.
for sure. I think that's a good point to maybe end the conversation, and it puts a challenge on everyone in the industry to do their part and to get involved in things. We at ICISA, we're hoping to do a lot more on this topic, provide more opportunities for people to discuss best practice, and also work with other communities like brokers and people in the legal and regulatory space as well, to make sure that we as an industry are leading on this topic and not just following. But to finish off, thanks again, particularly to Sean for joining us for a second time, and also to Roland and Barbara for their participation in the recording as well. Thank you also to everyone in our audience for their questions and their engagement throughout this session as well, and also for their patience because of the few gremlins that we had while recording. Fortunately, I think we got through it and we had a good discussion in the end. Later today, we have the final session of Surety Week, and registration is still possible for that. The subject, as you can see on your screen, is digitalization in surety. And there's a really good panel there that I think people will find very interesting. But that's the end of this session, and hopefully we'll see you later. So thanks again, and goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.